Question 1. Market research demonstrates that a particular vendor is aggressively promoting their new wireless solution, highlighting its perceived ease of deployment and a proprietary feature that promises enhanced user experience. The vendor's sales representative is strongly encouraging the adoption of their entire ecosystem, suggesting it will simplify integration and reduce long-term support costs. As the network designer, you have a responsibility to ensure the wireless network is secure, scalable, and meets the organization's specific needs, which may not be fully addressed by a single vendor's proprietary approach. What is the most professional and ethically sound course of action? Option A. Politely decline the vendor's offer, assuming their proprietary solution will create vendor lock-in and limit future flexibility without further investigation. Option B. Conduct an independent, objective evaluation of the vendor's solution against the organization's defined requirements, comparing it with alternative solutions from other vendors, and prioritizing security, scalability, and interoperability. Option C. Engage in discussions with the vendor to explore potential personal incentives or benefits in exchange for recommending their solution to management. Option D. Immediately adopt the vendor's recommended solution, trusting their claims of ease of deployment and integrated ecosystem to expedite the project timeline and minimize immediate effort. The correct answer is B. Conduct an independent, objective evaluation of the vendor's solution against the organization's defined requirements, comparing it with alternative solutions from other vendors, and prioritizing security, scalability, and interoperability. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it involves a conflict between a vendor's aggressive sales tactics and the network designer's responsibility to implement a secure and reliable wireless network that adheres to industry best practices and potentially specific organizational policies. The designer must navigate the pressure to adopt a solution that might not be the most technically sound or secure, while also considering the vendor's incentives. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a thorough, objective evaluation of all available solutions based on technical merit, security posture, and alignment with the organization's requirements, rather than succumbing to vendor pressure or perceived immediate benefits. This aligns with ethical principles of professional integrity, due diligence, and acting in the best interest of the employer or client. It ensures that the design is robust, secure, and future-proof, avoiding potential technical debt or security vulnerabilities introduced by a hastily adopted, vendor-pushed solution. An incorrect approach that involves accepting the vendor's recommendation without independent verification would represent a failure of due diligence and professional skepticism. This could lead to the implementation of a solution that is not optimal, potentially insecure, or not fully compatible with existing infrastructure, creating long-term operational issues and security risks. Ethically, it could be seen as a dereliction of duty to the organization, prioritizing convenience over thoroughness. Another incorrect approach, such as immediately dismissing the vendor's solution based on a preconceived notion or past negative experience without a fair evaluation, also fails professional standards. It demonstrates bias and a lack of objectivity, preventing the discovery of potentially valuable features or solutions. It also risks alienating a vendor unnecessarily and missing opportunities for innovation. A further incorrect approach, which might involve seeking a bribe or personal gain from the vendor, is a severe ethical and potentially legal violation. This constitutes a breach of trust, conflicts of interest, and undermines the integrity of the entire procurement and design process. Such actions are universally condemned in professional conduct and can lead to severe repercussions. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve 1. Clearly defining project requirements and objectives. 2. Conducting independent research and evaluating multiple vendor solutions against these requirements. 3. Engaging with vendors to understand their offerings, but maintaining a critical and objective stance. 4. Performing proof-of-concept testing or pilot deployments where feasible. 5. Documenting the evaluation process and the rationale for the final design decisions. 6. Seeking peer review or consultation for complex design choices. Question 2. Compliance review shows that the wireless network designed for a healthcare facility, which handles protected health information, FI, has implemented a single SSID for all users, including administrative staff, clinical personnel, and guest access. While this simplifies network management, the review highlights a potential conflict with the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, HIPAA, security rules requirements for safeguarding electronic PHI. The design team is now tasked with re-evaluating the wireless network architecture to ensure strict adherence to regulatory mandates. Which of the following approaches best addresses the compliance concerns while maintaining a secure and functional wireless environment? Option A. Document the current design as compliant, citing the overall network security measures in place, and defer any architectural changes until a future upgrade cycle. Option B. Implement separate SSIDs for different user groups, e.g., internal guest, with distinct security policies and VLAN assignments, ensuring PHI is isolated on a dedicated, highly secured VLAN with stringent access controls. Option C. Configure a separate VLAN for PHI, but allow unrestricted access to this VLAN from all other network segments to simplify troubleshooting. Option D. Rely on the existing single SSID and implement strong password policies for all users to mitigate potential access risks to PHI. The correct answer is B. Implement separate SSIDs for different user groups, e.g., internal guest with distinct security policies and VLAN assignments, ensuring PHI is isolated on a dedicated, highly secured VLAN with stringent access controls. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge where a network design, while technically functional, may inadvertently create a security vulnerability due to the improper application of a regulatory requirement. The challenge lies in balancing the desire for efficient network operation with the imperative to adhere to security mandates designed to protect sensitive data. The network engineer must exercise careful judgment to ensure that the implementation not only meets performance objectives, but also strictly complies with the specified regulatory framework, preventing potential data breaches and associated legal ramifications. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a thorough understanding of the specific regulatory framework's intent regarding data segregation and access control for sensitive information. Best professional practice dictates that when a regulatory requirement mandates the isolation of sensitive data, the network design must implement robust mechanisms to achieve this isolation, even if it introduces minor operational overhead. This includes leveraging appropriate VLAN configurations, access control lists, ACL, and potentially separate wireless SSIDs with distinct security policies. This approach directly addresses the regulatory mandate, ensuring data confidentiality and integrity, which are paramount in preventing unauthorized access and potential data breaches. Adherence to these principles is a core ethical and professional obligation for network designers. Incorrect approaches analysis. Implementing a single SSID for all users, including those accessing sensitive data, without proper segmentation or access controls, directly violates the spirit and likely the letter of regulations requiring data segregation. This creates a significant security risk by exposing sensitive information to a broader user base, leading to potential data breaches and non-compliance penalties. Configuring a separate VLAN for sensitive data, but failing to implement appropriate ACLs to restrict traffic flow between VLAN leaves the sensitive data vulnerable to unauthorized access from other network segments. This oversight negates the intended isolation and constitutes a regulatory failure. Ignoring the regulatory requirement entirely and proceeding with a design that prioritizes ease of management over security compliance is a clear ethical and professional lapse. This demonstrates a disregard for data protection mandates and exposes the organization to substantial legal and reputational damage. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach such situations by first meticulously reviewing the applicable regulatory framework and understanding the specific requirements related to data handling and security. When a potential conflict or ambiguity arises between operational efficiency and regulatory compliance, the default stance must always be to prioritize compliance. This involves seeking clarification from legal or compliance departments if necessary, and designing solutions that demonstrably meet or exceed regulatory standards. The decision-making process should involve a risk assessment that quantifies the potential impact of non-compliance, guiding the selection of the most secure and compliant design. Question 3. Investigation of a proposed wireless network solution reveals that a vendor offers a proprietary hardware and software package that promises to meet all current performance requirements and can be deployed rapidly. However, the vendor is reluctant to provide detailed technical specifications or allow independent security audits, citing intellectual property concerns. The IT department is under pressure to deliver a functional network quickly. What is the most professionally responsible course of action for the network designer? Option A. Request detailed security documentation and independent audit access, and evaluate the solution against established enterprise wireless design principles and security best practices before proceeding. Option B. Prioritize the immediate cost savings offered by the vendor's solution and proceed with deployment, deferring detailed security assessments to a later date. Option C. Reject the vendor's solution outright due to its proprietary nature and the vendor's lack of transparency, and seek alternative solutions that are based on open standards. Option D. Immediately accept the vendor's solution to meet the urgent deployment deadline, relying on the vendor's assurances of security and performance. The correct answer is A. Request detailed security documentation and independent audit access, and evaluate the solution against established enterprise wireless design principles and security best practices before proceeding. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common ethical dilemma in network design, where a vendor's proprietary solution offers immediate benefits but raises concerns about long-term vendor lock-in and potential security vulnerabilities due to undisclosed internal workings. The challenge lies in balancing the immediate need for a functional and secure network with the responsibility to make informed, sustainable, and secure design choices that align with industry best practices and potential regulatory compliance, even if not explicitly stated in the exam's limited scope. The pressure to deliver a quick solution can lead to overlooking critical design principles. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach prioritizes a thorough understanding of the proposed solution's security implications and its alignment with open standards and interoperability. This involves requesting detailed documentation, performing independent security assessments, and evaluating the solution against established enterprise wireless design best practices, such as those outlined by Cisco for secure and scalable deployments. This approach upholds the professional responsibility to design robust, secure, and maintainable networks, minimizing future risks and ensuring compliance with general security principles that underpin any regulatory framework. It demonstrates due diligence and a commitment to the long-term health of the network infrastructure. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves immediately accepting the vendor's solution based on their assurances and the promise of rapid deployment. This fails to uphold professional due diligence. Ethically, it represents a dereliction of duty to thoroughly vet solutions, potentially exposing the organization to unforeseen security risks or vendor lock-in. From a design perspective, it bypasses critical validation steps that are fundamental to creating resilient and secure enterprise networks. Another incorrect approach is to dismiss the vendor's solution outright without a proper evaluation, perhaps due to a preconceived bias against proprietary technologies. A caution is warranted. A blanket rejection without investigation is unprofessional. It misses the opportunity to objectively assess if the solution, despite its proprietary nature, meets the design requirements and security standards. This can lead to suboptimal design choices and missed opportunities for effective solutions. A third incorrect approach is to focus solely on the cost savings presented by the vendor without adequately assessing the total cost of ownership, including potential future licensing, support, and integration challenges. This is a failure in responsible financial and technical stewardship. It can lead to a situation where initial savings are dwarfed by long-term expenses or operational inefficiencies, and it neglects the security and performance implications that are paramount in enterprise network design. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a structured decision-making process that begins with clearly defining the project requirements, including security, performance, scalability, and budget. This is followed by a comprehensive evaluation of potential solutions, which includes vendor-provided information, independent research, and proof-of-concept testing where feasible. A critical component is risk assessment, considering both technical and business implications. Documentation and justification for the chosen solution are essential, ensuring transparency and accountability. This systematic approach ensures that design decisions are well-informed, defensible, and aligned with the organization's best interests and professional ethical standards. Question 4. What factors determine the most effective process for optimizing wireless network performance and user experience in a large enterprise environment? Option A. Alignment of network design with critical business objectives and user application requirements. Option B. Implementation of the most feature-rich wireless technologies regardless of immediate necessity. Option C. Reliance solely on vendor-provided specifications and default configurations for all deployment decisions. Option D. Selection of the lowest initial hardware acquisition cost for all network components. The correct answer is A. Alignment of network design with critical business objectives and user application requirements. Explanation. Scenario analysis. Designing a wireless network for a large enterprise involves balancing performance, security, and cost. When optimizing processes, a key challenge is ensuring that the chosen solutions align with the organization's strategic goals and operational realities, rather than simply implementing the latest technology. The pressure to deliver a high-performing network quickly can lead to overlooking critical long-term implications, such as scalability, manageability, and adherence to industry best practices and potential regulatory considerations, even if not explicitly stated in the exam scope. The complexity arises from the interconnectedness of network design choices with business outcomes. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach focuses on aligning network design decisions with business objectives and user experience. This involves a thorough understanding of application requirements, user mobility patterns, and the overall impact on business operations. By prioritizing solutions that enhance user productivity and support critical business functions, the design directly contributes to the organization's success. This aligns with professional best practices that emphasize a user-centric and business-driven approach to technology implementation, ensuring that investments deliver tangible value and operational efficiency. Incorrect approaches analysis, focusing solely on minimizing initial hardware costs without considering long-term operational expenses or performance limitations, is a common pitfall. This can lead to a network that is inadequate for future growth or requires frequent, costly upgrades, representing a failure in strategic planning and potentially violating principles of responsible resource allocation. Prioritizing the implementation of the most advanced or feature-rich technologies available, irrespective of actual business needs or user requirements, is another common error. This can result in over-provisioning, increased complexity in management, and unnecessary expenditure, failing to optimize processes and potentially introducing security vulnerabilities due to unmanaged features. Implementing solutions based on vendor recommendations without independent validation or consideration of the specific enterprise environment demonstrates a lack of due diligence. While vendors offer valuable insights, professional design requires an objective assessment of how those solutions fit the unique context, user base, and existing infrastructure of the organization. This can lead to suboptimal performance and integration issues. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a systematic approach that begins with a deep understanding of business requirements and user needs. This involves stakeholder interviews, application profiling, and site surveys. The design process should then iteratively evaluate potential solutions against these requirements, considering factors like performance, scalability, security, manageability, and total cost of ownership. A critical step is to validate assumptions and propose solutions through pilot testing or simulations where feasible. Adherence to industry standards and best practices, coupled with a forward-looking perspective on technological evolution and potential regulatory shifts, ensures a robust and sustainable network design. Question 5. When evaluating potential process optimizations for an enterprise wireless network to improve client connectivity and throughput, which approach best balances technical efficacy with practical implementation considerations? Option A. Immediately deploy the newest generation of Wi-Fi access points across the entire campus to leverage the latest technological advancements for maximum speed. Option B. Focus solely on increasing the transmit power of all access points to ensure the strongest possible signal coverage throughout the building. Option C. Prioritize the reduction of capital expenditure by reconfiguring existing access points to their default settings and disabling advanced features. Option D. Conduct a comprehensive site survey and analyze current network performance metrics to identify specific areas of degradation. Then propose targeted solutions that consider existing infrastructure and user impact. The correct answer is D. Conduct a comprehensive site survey and analyze current network performance metrics to identify specific areas of degradation, then propose targeted solutions that consider existing infrastructure and user impact. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent tension between optimizing network performance and adhering to established design principles and potential regulatory considerations for enterprise wireless deployments. The need to balance speed, reliability, and user experience with the practical constraints of existing infrastructure and budget requires careful judgment. A key aspect of process optimization in this context is ensuring that proposed changes are not only technically sound, but also align with the overall business objectives and any applicable industry standards or guidelines that might indirectly influence design choices, even if not explicitly codified as strict regulations for wireless design itself. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a systematic, data-driven methodology. By conducting a thorough site survey and analyzing existing network performance metrics, the engineer can identify specific bottlenecks and areas for improvement. This evidence-based approach ensures that proposed optimizations are targeted and likely to yield tangible benefits. Furthermore, considering the impact on existing infrastructure and user experience demonstrates a holistic understanding of the network's role within the enterprise. This aligns with professional ethics by ensuring responsible and effective resource utilization and minimizing disruption. While specific wireless design regulations are not as prevalent as in other fields, adherence to industry best practices and vendor recommendations, like those from Cisco for the 300-425 exam, is paramount for maintaining a secure, reliable, and efficient network, which indirectly supports compliance with broader IT governance frameworks. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on implementing the latest technology without a proper assessment is professionally unacceptable. This could lead to overspending, compatibility issues, and potentially introduce new problems without solving the original ones. It fails to demonstrate due diligence and a responsible use of resources. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes cost savings above all else, even at the expense of performance or reliability, is also professionally unsound. This can lead to a degraded user experience, increased support costs, and potential business impact, which is contrary to the professional obligation to deliver effective solutions. A third incorrect approach that ignores user feedback and focuses only on theoretical performance metrics overlooks the practical reality of network usage and can result in a solution that does not meet the actual needs of the end users, leading to dissatisfaction and reduced productivity. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with understanding the problem statement and objectives. This is followed by data gathering, site surveys, performance metrics, analysis of findings, development of potential solutions, evaluation of these solutions against criteria, performance, cost, user impact, feasibility, and finally, implementation and validation. This iterative process ensures that optimizations are well-reasoned, effective, and aligned with the organization's goals. Question 6. Quality control measures reveal that a critical inventory management process, heavily reliant on mobile scanners communicating wirelessly, is experiencing intermittent delays, impacting order fulfillment times. The current wireless infrastructure is a mix of older and newer access points, and no recent network changes have been documented. The design team needs to propose a solution to improve the reliability and performance of this wireless segment. Which of the following approaches best addresses the root cause of the performance degradation and leads to an optimized wireless network design? Option A. Implement a new, high-density wireless network design across the entire facility based on general best practices for warehouse environments, without collecting specific performance data from the current system or the affected business process. Option B. Conduct a comprehensive wireless site survey to identify and mitigate sources of interference, analyze Wi-Fi channel utilization, and measure signal strength and roaming performance across the affected area. Based on the findings, propose targeted upgrades or reconfigurations of access points and antenna placements, followed by a pilot deployment of the proposed changes in a limited section of the warehouse before a full rollout. Option C. Immediately upgrade all existing access points to the latest model and deploy additional access points throughout the warehouse to increase overall coverage density, assuming the current hardware is the primary bottleneck. Option D. focus troubleshooting efforts exclusively on the mobile scanner devices, ensuring their firmware is up to date and their Wi-Fi drivers are optimized, without investigating the wireless infrastructure itself. The correct answer is B. Conduct a comprehensive wireless site survey to identify and mitigate sources of interference, analyze Wi-Fi channel utilization, and measure signal strength and roaming performance across the affected area. Based on the findings, propose targeted upgrades or reconfigurations of access points and antenna placements, followed by a pilot deployment of the proposed changes in a limited section of the warehouse before a full rollout. Explanation: scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in enterprise wireless network design, where a critical business process is experiencing intermittent performance degradation. The challenge lies in accurately identifying the root cause without disrupting ongoing operations or making assumptions that could lead to incorrect design decisions. The pressure to resolve the issue quickly, coupled with the potential impact on revenue and user productivity, necessitates a systematic and data-driven approach. A rushed or incomplete analysis could result in a suboptimal network design, wasted resources, and continued performance problems, potentially leading to noncompliance with service-level agreements, SLAs, if applicable, or even reputational damage. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a phased, data-driven investigation that prioritizes understanding the existing environment and the specific impact on the business process. This begins with detailed data collection, including wireless performance metrics, e.g., signal strength, interference, throughput, latency, client device behavior, and application-level performance indicators. Analyzing this data in the context of the business process's requirements, e.g., transaction times, data volume, allows for the identification of patterns and anomalies. The subsequent step of simulating design changes in a controlled environment or a pilot deployment before full-scale implementation is crucial for validating potential solutions and minimizing risk. This iterative process of data collection, analysis, hypothesis testing, and validation aligns with best practices in network engineering and ensures that design decisions are based on empirical evidence, leading to a robust and efficient wireless network that meets business needs. This methodical approach also supports adherence to any internal or external quality standards that mandate evidence-based design and implementation. Incorrect approaches analysis. Implementing a broad, untested upgrade of all wireless infrastructure components without a clear understanding of the root cause is a significant professional failure. This approach is akin to treating symptoms rather than the disease. It is wasteful, disruptive, and highly unlikely to resolve the specific performance issue if it stems from a localized problem like interference or a configuration error. Ethically, it represents a failure to exercise due diligence and professional responsibility by not conducting a thorough investigation. Focusing solely on client-side issues without considering the wireless infrastructure's role is also an incomplete approach. While client devices can contribute to performance problems, the wireless network is the primary conduit for their communication. Ignoring the network's contribution means missing a potentially critical part of the solution. This can lead to a misallocation of resources and continued performance issues, failing to meet the expected service levels. Relying on anecdotal user feedback without objective data collection is another professional misstep. While user experience is important, subjective reports can be inconsistent and lack the precision needed for effective troubleshooting and design. Without correlating user feedback with measurable network and application performance data, any design changes based solely on these reports are speculative and prone to error, potentially leading to a design that doesn't address the actual technical bottlenecks. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a structured problem-solving methodology. This involves clearly defining the problem, gathering comprehensive data, analyzing that data to form hypotheses, testing those hypotheses through controlled experiments or simulations, and then implementing the validated solution. In wireless network design, this translates to understanding the business requirements, assessing the current wireless environment, identifying performance bottlenecks using objective metrics, and iteratively designing and validating solutions. This data-centric and iterative approach ensures that design decisions are sound, cost-effective, and directly address the identified issues, thereby upholding professional standards and delivering reliable network services. Question 7. Stakeholder feedback indicates that while wireless network availability is high, end-user productivity on critical business applications has declined, with users reporting intermittent performance issues and slow response times. The current network design has been in place for 3 years. What is the most effective approach to optimize the wireless network's performance to address these concerns? Option A. Reduce the number of managed access points to consolidate resources and lower operational costs, focusing only on essential coverage areas. Option B. Implement a vendor-provided automated network optimization suite and rely on its recommendations for configuration changes without further investigation. Option C. Conduct a thorough site survey to identify RF interference and channel utilization issues. Analyze application traffic patterns and QoS policies, and iteratively adjust AP configurations and client roaming parameters based on performance data and user feedback. Option D. Immediately deploy additional access points across all areas to increase signal strength and reduce client load per AP, assuming the current density is insufficient. The correct answer is C. Conduct a thorough site survey to identify RF interference and channel utilization issues, analyze application traffic patterns and QoS policies, and iteratively adjust AP configurations and client roaming parameters based on performance data and user feedback. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in enterprise wireless network design where performance metrics, while seemingly met, are not aligning with user experience and business objectives. The difficulty lies in identifying the root cause of this discrepancy, which often stems from a disconnect between technical design parameters and the actual operational environment and user workflows. The pressure to deliver a solution quickly, coupled with potentially conflicting stakeholder priorities, e.g., IT operations vs. end-user departments, necessitates a methodical and data-driven approach to process optimization. A purely technical fix without understanding the broader context risks addressing symptoms rather than the underlying issues, leading to recurring problems and dissatisfaction. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a comprehensive, iterative process of data gathering, analysis, and refinement, directly addressing the process optimization topic by focusing on improving the efficiency and effectiveness of the wireless network's operation in relation to user needs. This aligns with best professional practices by prioritizing a user-centric design and operational model. It involves 1. Deep dive into user workflows, understanding how users interact with the network for critical business functions. This moves beyond simple connectivity metrics to assess actual productivity and efficiency gains or losses. 2. Granular performance monitoring, collecting detailed data on application performance, latency, throughput, and client roaming behavior across different user groups and locations. This provides the empirical evidence needed to pinpoint bottlenecks. 3. Root cause analysis, systematically correlating performance data with user feedback and observed issues to identify the underlying technical or configuration problems. This might involve analyzing RF interference, channel utilization, QoS policies, or client device behavior. 4. Iterative design and testing, implementing targeted adjustments based on the root cause analysis, and then rigorously testing the impact of these changes on user experience and business outcomes. This iterative cycle ensures that optimizations are effective and do not introduce new problems. 5. Stakeholder communication, maintaining open and transparent communication with all stakeholders throughout the process, ensuring alignment and managing expectations. This approach represents best professional practice because it is grounded in empirical evidence, user needs, and a systematic problem-solving methodology. It ensures that network design and optimization efforts are directly contributing to business value and are sustainable. Incorrect approach is analysis, an approach that focuses solely on increasing AP density without a thorough understanding of the existing issues is professionally unacceptable. This is a common but often ineffective brute force solution. It fails to address the root cause, which might be configuration issues, interference, or suboptimal client roaming, and can lead to increased co-channel interference and management complexity. Ethically, it represents a failure to provide a cost-effective and efficient solution, potentially wasting organizational resources. Another incorrect approach is to rely solely on vendor-provided automated tuning tools without independent validation or understanding of the underlying issues. While these tools can be helpful, they are not a substitute for expert analysis. Over-reliance on automation without human oversight can lead to suboptimal configurations that do not account for specific environmental nuances or critical business application requirements. This can result in a technically tuned network that still fails to meet user expectations, representing a failure in professional due diligence and potentially leading to a misallocation of resources. A third incorrect approach is to prioritize cost reduction by downgrading hardware or reducing essential monitoring capabilities. This directly contradicts the goal of process optimization, as it undermines the network's ability to perform reliably and be effectively managed. It creates a technically deficient infrastructure that will likely lead to more significant operational issues and higher long-term costs, representing a failure in professional judgment and a disregard for the long-term health and efficiency of the network. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach process optimization by first establishing clear, measurable objectives aligned with business goals. This involves actively soliciting and understanding stakeholder needs and pain points. The next step is to gather comprehensive data from the existing environment, focusing on both technical metrics and user experience. This data should then be analyzed to identify root causes, not just symptoms. Solutions should be designed iteratively, with pilot testing and validation before full deployment. Continuous monitoring and feedback loops are essential to ensure ongoing optimization and adaptation to changing business requirements. This systematic, data-driven, and user-centric approach ensures that technical solutions deliver tangible business value and represent the most effective and responsible use of resources. Question 8. The control framework reveals that to maintain optimal wireless network performance and user experience in a dynamic enterprise environment, which ongoing process optimization strategy is most effective for identifying and mitigating potential issues before they impact critical business operations. Option A. Relying solely on the initial network design and deployment best practices, assuming that these will inherently maintain optimal performance indefinitely. Option B. Conducting periodic ad hoc performance tuning based on anecdotal evidence or isolated user complaints without a structured data collection or analysis methodology. Option C. Implementing a comprehensive, data-driven monitoring and analysis program that continuously collects and evaluates key performance indicators to proactively identify trends and anomalies. Option D. Addressing wireless performance issues only when end users report significant problems or service disruptions occur. Correct answer is C. Implementing a comprehensive, data-driven monitoring and analysis program that continuously collects and evaluates key performance indicators to proactively identify trends and anomalies. Explanation. The control framework reveals that optimizing wireless network performance is a continuous process, not a one-time deployment. In enterprise environments, especially those subject to regulatory compliance like HIPAA or PCI DSS, though not explicitly stated for this exam's jurisdiction, the principles of data integrity and availability are universal in enterprise design. Ensuring consistent and reliable wireless connectivity is paramount. The challenge lies in balancing the need for high performance with the constraints of budget, existing infrastructure, and evolving user demands. A proactive approach to process optimization, rather than a reactive one, is crucial for maintaining service-level agreements (SLAs) and preventing potential disruptions that could have significant business and, in regulated industries, compliance implications. The correct approach focuses on establishing a robust monitoring and analysis framework. This involves collecting granular data on key performance indicators, KPIs such as signal strength, client roaming behavior, interference levels, and throughput. By analyzing this data over time, potential performance bottlenecks or degradation can be identified before they impact end users or critical business operations. This aligns with best professional practices by ensuring the network remains optimized and resilient, thereby supporting business continuity and user productivity. It also indirectly supports regulatory compliance by ensuring the availability and integrity of data transmitted over the wireless network. An incorrect approach would be to solely rely on initial deployment best practices without ongoing validation. This fails to account for environmental changes, new device types, or shifts in user traffic patterns, all of which can degrade performance over time. Ethically, this represents a failure to provide a consistently reliable service to the organization. Another incorrect approach is to only address performance issues when they are reported by users. This reactive stance leads to prolonged periods of suboptimal performance, impacting productivity and potentially leading to data loss or corruption, which could have regulatory ramifications. Furthermore, implementing changes without a structured validation process, such as a /B testing or phased rollouts, introduces unnecessary risk and can exacerbate existing problems or create new ones, demonstrating a lack of professional due diligence. Professionals should adopt a cyclical approach to network design and optimization. This involves continuous assessment, planning, implementation, and review, establishing clear performance metrics, regularly collecting and analyzing relevant data, and having a defined process for implementing and validating changes are key components of this cycle. This proactive and data-driven methodology ensures that the wireless network evolves with the business needs and maintains optimal performance and reliability. Question 9. The risk matrix shows a high likelihood of unauthorized access to sensitive financial data by wireless clients due to inadequate segmentation and authentication controls. Which of the following design approaches best mitigates this specific risk while adhering to common enterprise security best practices and regulatory expectations for data protection? Option A. Deploy a network-wide VPN solution for all wireless clients to encrypt all traffic traversing the wireless network. Option B. Configure MAC address filtering on all wireless access points to permit only known devices. Option C. Implement granular role-based access control, RBAC policies enforced at the wireless controller, mapping user roles to specific network access privileges and resource availability. Option D. Enhance endpoint security software on all client devices to detect and block unauthorized access attempts. Correct answer is C. Implement granular role-based access control, RBAC policies enforced at the wireless controller, mapping user roles to specific network access privileges and resource availability. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in enterprise wireless network design, balancing the need for robust security and compliance with operational efficiency and user experience. The risk matrix, a standard tool for assessing potential threats and their impact, highlights a critical vulnerability related to unauthorized access to sensitive network resources. The professional challenge lies in selecting a remediation strategy that effectively mitigates this risk without introducing undue complexity, cost, or performance degradation, all while adhering to the specific regulatory framework governing the organization's operations. The pressure to deliver a secure and functional network within project timelines and budget constraints adds further complexity. Correct approach analysis. Implementing a granular, role-based access control RBAC policy for wireless clients, enforced at the access point app or wireless controller level, represents best professional practice. This approach directly addresses the identified risk by ensuring that only authorized users with specific roles can access designated network segments and resources. From a regulatory perspective, RBAC is a cornerstone of data protection and privacy compliance, as it aligns with principles of least privilege and segregation of duties. For example, in a U.S. context, regulations like HIPAA for healthcare or PCI DSS for payment card data mandate strict access controls to protect sensitive information. By enforcing access policies at the network edge, this method minimizes the attack surface and prevents lateral movement of threats. It is a proactive and scalable solution that integrates seamlessly with existing authentication mechanisms like Radius. Incorrect approaches analysis. Deploying a broad network-wide VPN for all wireless clients, while seemingly a security measure, is an inefficient and potentially non-compliant approach. It fails to address the root cause of the risk, which is unauthorized access to specific resources, not general network exposure. This approach would impose unnecessary overhead on all users, impacting performance and user experience. Furthermore, it does not provide the granular control required by many regulations, as it grants broad access rather than role-specific permissions. Ethically, it represents a failure to implement the most effective and appropriate solution. Implementing a simple MAC address filtering policy is a fundamentally flawed and insecure approach. MAC addresses are easily spoofed and provide no genuine security. This method would create a false sense of security while leaving the network vulnerable to the very risks identified in the matrix. From a regulatory standpoint, Relying on MAC filtering would be a clear violation of due diligence requirements for protecting sensitive data, as it demonstrates a lack of understanding of modern network security threats. It is an outdated and unprofessional practice. Relying solely on endpoint security software, e.g., antivirus, host-based firewalls, without network-level controls is insufficient. While endpoint security is crucial, it is a reactive measure and does not prevent unauthorized network access at the source. The risk matrix specifically points to unauthorized access to network resources, which requires network-centric controls. A purely endpoint-focused strategy fails to address the network perimeter and leaves the organization exposed to threats that bypass individual device defenses. This approach represents a significant regulatory and ethical failure by neglecting essential network security layers. Professional reasoning. Professionals must first thoroughly analyze the risk matrix to understand the specific nature and impact of identified risks. This involves understanding the underlying vulnerabilities and the potential consequences. The next step is to identify potential remediation strategies that directly address these risks. Critically, these strategies must be evaluated against the organization's specific regulatory and compliance obligations. Best professional practice dictates choosing solutions that are effective, scalable, and align with the principle of least privilege. This involves considering the technical feasibility, operational impact, and cost-effectiveness of each option. When faced with multiple potential solutions, a risk-based approach, prioritizing the most impactful and compliant measures, is essential. Professionals must also consider the long-term implications of their design choices, ensuring that the implemented solution is sustainable and adaptable to future threats and evolving regulatory landscapes. Question 10. The control framework reveals a scenario where multiple users are reporting intermittent wireless connectivity issues and slow data transfer speeds in a specific building zone. Initial user feedback suggests potential interference, but the exact source and nature are unknown. The IT team needs to address this promptly to minimize business impact. Which of the following approaches best optimizes the process for identifying and resolving the interference? Option A. Immediately disable all non-essential wireless access points in the affected zone until the issue is resolved. Option B. Rely solely on user complaints to guide troubleshooting efforts, asking them to report any further instances of connectivity problems. Option C. Deploy advanced wireless network analysis tools to perform a detailed spectrum analysis and identify specific interference sources. Then implement targeted mitigation strategies based on the findings. Option D. Implement a global change to increase transmit power on all access points across the entire campus to potentially overpower any interference. The correct answer is A. Immediately disable all non-essential wireless access points in the affected zone until the issue is resolved. Explanation. The control framework reveals a common challenge in enterprise wireless network design, balancing the need for robust security and performance with the operational realities of a dynamic environment. In this scenario, the challenge lies in optimizing the process of identifying and mitigating interference sources without causing undue disruption to critical business operations. A proactive and systematic approach is essential to ensure continuous network availability and compliance with any relevant service level agreements or operational policies. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a structured, data-driven methodology for interference analysis and resolution. This involves leveraging advanced network monitoring tools to pinpoint the exact nature and location of interference, followed by a phased implementation of mitigation strategies. This methodical process minimizes the risk of unintended consequences, such as disrupting legitimate wireless traffic or introducing new issues. It aligns with the principles of responsible network management, ensuring that changes are well understood, tested, and implemented with minimal impact. Furthermore, by documenting the process and outcomes, it contributes to a knowledge base for future troubleshooting and network optimization, fostering continuous improvement. An incorrect approach that involves immediately disabling all suspect access points without proper investigation is professionally unacceptable. This is because it fails to adhere to a systematic troubleshooting process, leading to potential overcorrection and unnecessary service disruption. Ethically, it demonstrates a lack of due diligence and could negatively impact business operations, potentially violating service-level agreements or internal operational policies. Another incorrect approach, which is to rely solely on user-reported issues without active network monitoring, is also professionally deficient. This reactive stance can lead to prolonged periods of degraded performance and user dissatisfaction. It fails to proactively identify and address underlying issues, potentially allowing them to escalate. From a regulatory or policy perspective, this approach might be seen as failing to meet reasonable operational standards for network management. A third incorrect approach, which is to implement broad, sweeping configuration changes across the entire wireless infrastructure based on a single reported incident, is professionally unsound. This shotgun approach lacks precision and can introduce widespread instability. It fails to isolate the problem to its root cause and risks creating more issues than it solves. This demonstrates poor judgment and a lack of understanding of the interconnectedness of network components, potentially leading to breaches of operational integrity. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the network's criticality, a commitment to a structured troubleshooting methodology, and the effective utilization of available network management tools. This includes 1. Thoroughly understanding the reported issue and its potential impact. 2. Employing diagnostic tools to gather precise data on the network state. 3. Developing a hypothesis for the root cause based on the collected data. 4. Planning and executing targeted mitigation strategies, starting with the least disruptive. 5. Validating the effectiveness of the implemented changes and documenting the entire process. This systematic approach ensures that solutions are effective, efficient, and minimize risk to ongoing operations. Question 11. Compliance review shows that the enterprise wireless network designed for a healthcare organization must adhere to strict data privacy regulations, ensuring patient health information (PHI) is protected and access is strictly controlled. The design team is considering several approaches for the new wireless network deployment, which approach best balances regulatory compliance, security, and operational needs. Option A. Prioritize the adoption of the newest wireless standards and features to ensure the network is future-proof, with security configurations to be addressed post-deployment. Option B. Implement a phased deployment strategy that includes a comprehensive risk assessment, network segmentation based on data sensitivity, granular role-based access controls, and continuous monitoring to ensure adherence to data privacy regulations. Option C. Deploy a single, flat wireless network with strong user authentication to simplify management and maximize Wi-Fi coverage for all users. Option D. Implement user authentication and authorization based solely on user identity, without specific controls for different data types or levels of sensitivity. The correct answer is B. Implement a phased deployment strategy that includes a comprehensive risk assessment, network segmentation based on data sensitivity, granular role-based access controls, and continuous monitoring to ensure adherence to data privacy regulations. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in enterprise wireless design, balancing the need for robust security and compliance with the practical demands of user experience and operational efficiency. The challenge lies in interpreting and applying regulatory requirements, specifically those related to data privacy and network access controls, within the context of a dynamic wireless environment. The pressure to deploy quickly without compromising security or violating regulations necessitates a thorough understanding of both technical capabilities and legal obligations. The stakeholder perspective is crucial here, as different groups will have varying priorities and interpretations of risk. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a phased deployment strategy that prioritizes a comprehensive risk assessment and the implementation of granular access controls aligned with data privacy regulations. This approach demonstrates best professional practice by proactively identifying potential vulnerabilities and ensuring that security measures are not an afterthought but an integral part of the design. By segmenting the network and enforcing role-based access, the design directly addresses the regulatory requirement to protect sensitive data and ensure that only authorized personnel can access specific information. This aligns with the principle of least privilege, a cornerstone of effective security and regulatory compliance. The emphasis on ongoing monitoring and auditing further solidifies this approach, as it ensures continuous adherence to established policies and regulatory mandates. Incorrect approaches analysis. Implementing a broad, flat network architecture without segmentation fails to address the regulatory requirement for data segregation and access control. This approach creates a significant security risk by allowing potential unauthorized access to sensitive information, directly violating data privacy principles. It also makes it difficult to audit access, a common regulatory requirement. Deploying a solution that relies solely on user authentication without considering the sensitivity of the data being accessed overlooks the nuanced requirements of data protection regulations. While authentication is a necessary step, it is insufficient on its own to prevent unauthorized access to specific data types or to enforce compliance with data handling policies. This approach is ethically questionable as it prioritizes convenience over robust data protection, focusing exclusively on the latest wireless technology features without a thorough assessment of their security implications and regulatory compliance implications is a critical failure. New technologies may introduce unforeseen vulnerabilities or may not inherently support the necessary security controls required by regulations. This reactive approach is professionally unsound and ethically problematic, as it places the organization at risk of noncompliance and data breaches. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a risk-based, compliance-driven design methodology. This involves 1. Understanding the specific regulatory landscape applicable to the organization's data and operations. 2. Conducting a thorough risk assessment to identify potential threats and vulnerabilities. 3. Designing network architecture with security and compliance as foundational principles, not add-ons. 4. Implementing granular access controls and segmentation based on data sensitivity and user roles. 5. Prioritizing phased deployments with rigorous testing and validation at each stage. 6. Establishing robust monitoring, auditing, and incident response capabilities. 7. Engaging with stakeholders to ensure alignment on security and compliance objectives. Question 12. Market research demonstrates that emerging wireless network features offer enhanced security and improved user experience, but also come with significant upfront costs. A large enterprise is considering a major wireless network upgrade and needs to decide on the scope of new features to implement. The IT department is eager to adopt the latest technologies, while the finance department is concerned about the budget. The marketing department believes improved Wi-Fi performance will directly impact customer engagement in retail locations. Considering these diverse stakeholder perspectives and the need for a sustainable and effective network, what is the most prudent approach to designing the new wireless network? Option A. Implement a phased rollout of new features, prioritizing those that directly address critical business needs and offer the highest demonstrable return on investment, while deferring less critical enhancements to future budget cycles. Option B. Immediately deploy all available advanced features to ensure the network is state-of-the-art, assuming the long-term benefits will outweigh the initial expenditure. Option C. Prioritize features based on vendor recommendations and industry trends, assuming these will provide the most competitive advantage, regardless of specific internal business needs or budget constraints. Option D. Focus solely on the most cost-effective solution, implementing only basic connectivity upgrades to meet minimum operational requirements and deferring all advanced features indefinitely. The correct answer is A. Implement a phased rollout of new features, prioritizing those that directly address critical business needs and offer the highest demonstrable return on investment, while deferring less critical enhancements to future budget cycles. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in enterprise wireless network design, balancing the desire for cutting-edge features with the practical realities of budget constraints and existing infrastructure. The challenge lies in identifying which new features offer the most significant return on investment and align with the organization's strategic goals, rather than simply adopting the latest technology. A failure to properly assess stakeholder needs and prioritize effectively can lead to wasted resources, user dissatisfaction, and a network that doesn't meet business objectives. The professional challenge is to translate business requirements into technical specifications and justify the proposed design choices to a diverse group of stakeholders. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a phased deployment strategy that prioritizes features based on their impact on critical business operations and user experience, while also considering the total cost of ownership and the organization's risk tolerance. This aligns with best professional practices by ensuring that investments are strategically aligned with business goals. It demonstrates a commitment to delivering value and managing resources responsibly. From a regulatory and ethical standpoint, this approach ensures that the organization is not overspending on non-essential features, which could be seen as a fiduciary responsibility to shareholders or stakeholders. It also allows for iterative feedback and adjustments, minimizing disruption and ensuring user adoption. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach is to immediately implement all newly available features without a thorough assessment of their necessity or impact. This represents a failure to exercise due diligence and can lead to significant financial waste and operational complexity. Ethically, it could be viewed as irresponsible stewardship of company resources. Another incorrect approach is to defer all upgrades due to perceived budget limitations without exploring potential cost-saving measures or phased implementations. This can lead to a network that becomes increasingly obsolete, impacting productivity and security, and potentially failing to meet compliance requirements in the long run. It also demonstrates a lack of proactive problem solving. A third incorrect approach is to prioritize features based solely on vendor recommendations or industry buzz without understanding the specific needs of the enterprise. This can result in a technically advanced network that doesn't solve the organization's unique problems, leading to user frustration and a poor return on investment. This approach neglects the fundamental principle of designing for the end user and business context. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach such design decisions by first conducting a comprehensive needs assessment involving all relevant stakeholders. This includes understanding current pain points, future business objectives, and user expectations. Following this, a thorough evaluation of available technologies and features should be performed, focusing on their alignment with the identified needs and their potential return on investment. A risk assessment should also be conducted to understand the implications of adopting new technologies. Finally, a phased implementation plan, prioritizing the most impactful features, should be developed and presented with clear justifications, allowing for ongoing evaluation and adaptation. Question 13. Process analysis reveals that the marketing department requires a temporary, high-density wireless network deployment for an upcoming 3-day trade show booth to support interactive product demonstrations and lead capture applications. The existing enterprise wireless network is designed for standard office use and may not adequately support the anticipated user density and traffic patterns for this event. The IT department must design and implement a solution that meets the marketing department's immediate needs while adhering to all applicable U.S. federal regulations for wireless spectrum usage and ensuring the security and stability of the broader enterprise network. Which of the following approaches best balances these competing requirements? Option A. Inform the marketing department that the existing enterprise wireless network cannot support their needs and deny the request for a temporary deployment due to the short duration of the event. Option B. Install additional access points from the existing enterprise wireless infrastructure in the vicinity of the trade show booth, without any specific configuration changes or security considerations beyond the default settings. Option C. Immediately deploy a simple, consumer-grade wireless router at the booth, broadcasting an open SSID to ensure maximum accessibility for all attendees and exhibitors. Option D. Deploy a dedicated, temporary wireless network using enterprise-grade access points configured with appropriate SSIDs, security protocols, and guest access policies, ensuring compliance with FCC regulations for power output and channel usage, and coordinate with IT security for proper network segmentation. The correct answer is D. Deploy a dedicated, temporary wireless network using enterprise-grade access points configured with appropriate SSIDs, security protocols, and guest access policies, ensuring compliance with FCC regulations for power output and channel usage, and coordinate with IT security for proper network segmentation. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in enterprise wireless network design, balancing the immediate needs of a specific department with the broader organizational requirements for security, scalability, and compliance. The marketing department's request for a high-density Wi-Fi deployment for a temporary event, while seemingly straightforward, introduces complexities related to resource allocation, potential interference with existing infrastructure, and the need to adhere to established network policies. The challenge lies in satisfying the immediate business need without compromising the long-term stability and security of the enterprise network, all while operating within the defined regulatory framework for wireless deployments in the United States. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a thorough assessment of the marketing department's requirements against the existing network infrastructure and organizational policies. This includes evaluating the feasibility of deploying temporary high-density access points, considering potential RF interference, and ensuring the solution aligns with the organization's overall wireless strategy and security posture. Crucially, it necessitates engaging with IT security and network operations teams to ensure compliance with FCC regulations regarding spectrum usage and power output, as well as internal security policies for guest access and data handling. This collaborative and policy-driven approach ensures that the temporary deployment is secure, compliant, and does not negatively impact the permanent network infrastructure. It represents best professional practice by prioritizing a holistic view of network management, risk mitigation, and adherence to established governance. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach is to immediately approve and deploy the requested high-density solution without any further investigation. This fails to consider potential RF interference with existing enterprise Wi-Fi, which could degrade performance for all users and potentially violate FCC guidelines on signal strength and interference mitigation. It also bypasses essential security reviews, potentially creating vulnerabilities for the corporate network by not properly segmenting guest traffic or implementing appropriate authentication mechanisms. Another incorrect approach is to dismiss the request outright due to the temporary nature of the event. This demonstrates a lack of understanding of business needs and a failure to provide adequate support to other departments. While the event is temporary, the network design must still adhere to all applicable regulations and best practices for wireless deployments, even for short-term use. Ignoring the request without exploring compliant solutions is professionally negligent and hinders interdepartmental collaboration. A third incorrect approach is to implement a solution that prioritizes ease of deployment over security and compliance. For example, using a simple, unmanaged access point solution that broadcasts a wide, open SSID would be a significant security and regulatory failure. This would expose the corporate network to unauthorized access and violate FCC rules regarding unauthorized transmissions and potential interference. It also fails to consider the need for proper network segmentation and data privacy, which are critical ethical and regulatory considerations. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a structured decision-making process that begins with a clear understanding of the business requirement. This should be followed by a comprehensive technical assessment, including site surveys, RF analysis, and compatibility checks with existing infrastructure. Crucially, all proposed solutions must be evaluated against relevant regulatory frameworks, in this case, US FCC regulations and internal IT policies. Collaboration with stakeholders, including the requesting department, IT security, and network operations, is paramount. Risk assessment and mitigation strategies should be integral to the design process. Finally, documentation of the design, implementation, and post-event decommissioning is essential for auditing and future reference. Question 14. Risk assessment procedures indicate that the enterprise wireless network will be used to transmit sensitive financial transaction data, and the current infrastructure primarily supports WPA2. Considering U.S. regulatory frameworks for financial data protection, which design approach best mitigates the identified risks while ensuring robust security? Option A. Continue using WPA2 PSK across the entire network, ensuring strong, complex pre-shared keys are used and regularly rotated. Option B. Disable wireless security entirely for the financial transaction data segments to maximize throughput and minimize latency. Option C. Implement WPA3 where client devices support it, and for devices that do not, deploy WPA2 Enterprise with 802.1x authentication and a secure radius server, coupled with network segmentation to isolate financial traffic. Option D. Upgrade all client devices to support WPA3 and enforce its use exclusively, accepting that some older devices may be unable to connect. The correct answer is C. Implement WPA3 where client devices support it, and for devices that do not, deploy WPA2 Enterprise with 802.1x authentication and a secure radius server, coupled with network segmentation to isolate financial traffic. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in enterprise wireless network design, where a critical business function relies on a technology that has inherent security vulnerabilities. The challenge lies in balancing the need for robust wireless connectivity with the imperative to protect sensitive financial data from unauthorized access and potential breaches. The professional must navigate the complexities of wireless security protocols, regulatory compliance, specifically U.S. regulations for financial data handling, and the practical implications of implementing security measures without unduly impacting user experience or operational efficiency. The pressure to deliver a functional and secure network within project timelines and budget constraints adds to the professional difficulty. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach prioritizes a layered security strategy that addresses known vulnerabilities in WPA2 and aligns with U.S. regulatory frameworks like PCI DSS, Payment Card Industry Data Security Standard, and NIST guidelines for protecting sensitive data. Implementing WPA3, where supported by client devices, offers enhanced encryption and authentication mechanisms. For devices that cannot support WPA3, a robust WPA2 enterprise implementation with strong authentication, e.g., 802, 1x with EPTLS, and a secure radius server is crucial. Network segmentation, employing VLAN to isolate sensitive financial traffic from general user traffic, further limits the blast radius of any potential security incident. Regular security audits and vulnerability assessments are mandated by many U.S. financial regulations and are essential for maintaining compliance and proactively identifying weaknesses. This approach demonstrates a commitment to due diligence, risk mitigation, and adherence to industry best practices and legal requirements for handling financial data. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves solely relying on WPA2 pre-shared key for the entire network. This is a significant regulatory and ethical failure because WPA2 is inherently less secure than WPA2 Enterprise or WPA3, especially in an enterprise environment with a large number of users. PSKs are static and shared, making them susceptible to brute force attacks and unauthorized access if compromised. This directly violates the spirit and often the letter of regulations like PCI DSS, which mandate strong authentication and encryption to protect cardholder data. Another incorrect approach is to disable wireless security altogether to improve performance or simplify deployment. This is a gross regulatory and ethical violation. It exposes sensitive financial data to anyone within radio range, creating an immediate and severe security risk. This would be a direct contravention of numerous U.S. data protection laws and industry standards, leading to severe penalties, reputational damage, and loss of customer trust. A third incorrect approach is to implement WPA2 Enterprise, but without a robust radius server or proper certificate management for EAPTLS. This could lead to weak authentication, making the network vulnerable to credential stuffing attacks or man-in-the-middle attacks if certificates are not properly validated. This failure to implement security controls effectively, even when using a more secure protocol, still falls short of regulatory requirements for protecting sensitive data and represents a professional lapse in due diligence. Professional reasoning. Professionals designing enterprise wireless networks, especially those handling sensitive data, must adopt a risk-based approach. This involves understanding the specific data being transmitted, the relevant regulatory landscape, e.g., U.S. financial regulations, and the capabilities of available technologies. The decision-making process should involve 1. Identifying critical assets and data types. 2. Assessing potential threats and vulnerabilities specific to wireless technologies. 3. Evaluating security controls against regulatory requirements and industry best practices. 4. Prioritizing solutions that offer the strongest security posture while considering operational impact. 5. Implementing a defense-in-depth strategy that includes multiple layers of security. 6. Establishing ongoing monitoring, auditing, and incident response procedures. This systematic approach ensures that the network design is not only functional, but also secure, compliant, and resilient. Question 15. The performance metrics show a consistent pattern of increased client roaming events and a higher than acceptable number of client disconnections during critical business hours in a large enterprise wireless deployment. The network design documentation indicates the use of a specific roaming protocol and a particular channel assignment strategy. What is the most appropriate next step for the network design team to address these issues? Option A. Implement a new, more complex roaming protocol without fully understanding the current protocol's limitations or the impact on existing client devices. Option B. Immediately increase the transmit power on all access points to ensure a stronger signal for all clients, assuming signal strength is the primary cause of roaming problems. Option C. Advise end users to move closer to access points and reduce the number of devices connected to each access point, attributing the issues to user behavior and device density. Option D. Review the wireless controller's roaming configuration and analyze channel utilization and interference levels in the affected areas to identify potential design flaws or environmental factors contributing to the roaming and disconnection issues. Correct answer is D. Review the wireless controller's roaming configuration and analyze channel utilization and interference levels in the affected areas to identify potential design flaws or environmental factors contributing to the roaming and disconnection issues. Explanation. The performance metrics show a significant increase in wireless network latency and a decrease in throughput during peak business hours, impacting critical business applications. This scenario is professionally challenging because it directly affects user productivity and business operations, requiring a rapid and effective resolution. The design of enterprise wireless networks must balance performance, security, and user experience while adhering to regulatory compliance. The correct approach is to analyze the collected performance data in conjunction with the existing network design documentation and conduct targeted on-site investigations to identify the root cause of the degradation. This involves correlating the observed metrics with factors such as client density, channel utilization, interference sources, and access point app configurations. Best professional practice dictates a systematic, data-driven approach to troubleshooting and design validation. This aligns with the principles of responsible network engineering, ensuring that the deployed solution meets the stated business requirements and maintains a high level of service availability. Adherence to Cisco's design best practices, as outlined in the 300-425 ENWLSD curriculum, is paramount. An incorrect approach would be to immediately implement a blanket configuration change across all APs without a thorough understanding of the specific issues affecting different areas of the network. This could lead to unintended consequences, further degrading performance or introducing new problems. Ethically, this approach fails to uphold the professional responsibility to provide a reliable and efficient network. Another incorrect approach is to dismiss the performance metrics as user error or isolated incidents without proper investigation. This demonstrates a lack of diligence and a failure to address potential systemic issues, which could have significant business implications and violate service-level agreements. Furthermore, ignoring the data and relying solely on anecdotal evidence is unprofessional and can lead to misdiagnosis and ineffective solutions. Professionals should employ a structured troubleshooting methodology, starting with data collection and analysis, followed by hypothesis generation, testing, and validation. This iterative process ensures that solutions are based on evidence and are tailored to the specific environment. When faced with performance degradation, a professional decision-making process involves 1. Understanding the business impact. 2. Gathering all relevant data, performance metrics, logs, configuration. 3. Analyzing the data to identify potential root causes. 4. Formulating and testing hypotheses. 5. Implementing and validating the solution. 6. Documenting the findings and actions taken. This systematic approach ensures that the network is designed and maintained to meet business needs and regulatory expectations. Question 16. System analysis indicates that a large hospital network is experiencing intermittent wireless connectivity issues impacting critical patient monitoring systems in the intensive care unit, ICU. The IT department is tasked with designing a new wireless network infrastructure. The primary stakeholder, the chief medical officer, emphasizes that uninterrupted connectivity for patient care is the absolute top priority, but also expresses interest in future capabilities for real-time patient data analytics and integration of Internet of Things, EOT, medical devices. The IT director is concerned about budget constraints and the need for a solution that can be implemented quickly. Which design approach best balances the immediate critical needs with future strategic goals and regulatory considerations for this healthcare environment? Option A. Deploy a hospital-wide wireless network solution, immediately using the most cost-effective hardware available to address the current connectivity problems across all departments, deferring any discussions about future analytics or EOT integration to a later, unspecified project. Option B. Focus exclusively on upgrading the wireless infrastructure in the ICU to ensure immediate patient care continuity, without considering the broader network architecture or future expansion needs, as this is the most critical area. Option C. Design and implement a comprehensive, high-density wireless network across the entire hospital that incorporates advanced features for data analytics and EOT integration from the outset, prioritizing these future capabilities over immediate, potentially simpler, connectivity fixes in the ICU. Option D. Implement a phased wireless network upgrade, starting with a pilot deployment in the ICU to validate performance and reliability for critical systems, while concurrently gathering detailed requirements for future phases of data analytics and EOT integration, ensuring the chosen architecture supports scalability and compliance with healthcare regulations. The correct answer is D. Implement a phased wireless network upgrade, starting with a pilot deployment in the ICU to validate performance and reliability for critical systems, while concurrently gathering detailed requirements for future phases of data analytics and EOT integration, ensuring the chosen architecture supports scalability and compliance with healthcare regulations. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in enterprise wireless network design, where a critical business function, patient care in a healthcare setting, is directly impacted by network performance. The professional challenge lies in balancing the immediate needs of a sensitive operational environment with the long-term strategic goals of network scalability and security, all while adhering to specific regulatory requirements. The urgency of patient care demands immediate solutions, but a rushed design without proper consideration of future growth or compliance can lead to significant technical debt, security vulnerabilities, and regulatory noncompliance, which in a healthcare context can have severe consequences. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a phased implementation strategy that prioritizes immediate critical needs while laying the groundwork for future expansion and compliance. This aligns with best professional practices in network design by ensuring that the initial deployment addresses the most pressing requirements, e.g., reliable connectivity for critical medical devices, without compromising the ability to scale or meet evolving regulatory mandates. Specifically, focusing on a pilot deployment in a critical care unit allows for real-world validation of performance and reliability under demanding conditions. Simultaneously, engaging with stakeholders to gather requirements for future phases, including data analytics and EOT integration, ensures that the design is future-proof. This approach demonstrates a commitment to a robust, scalable, and compliant network infrastructure that supports the organization's mission. Incorrect approaches analysis. Implementing a broad, unvalidated deployment across the entire hospital without a pilot program is professionally unsound. It risks widespread disruption if unforeseen issues arise, potentially impacting patient care across multiple departments. This approach fails to demonstrate due diligence in risk assessment and mitigation, a core ethical responsibility in designing critical infrastructure. Deploying a solution solely based on the lowest cost without a thorough assessment of its ability to meet performance, security, and future scalability requirements is a significant ethical and professional failure. Cost-cutting at the expense of functionality and compliance in a healthcare environment can lead to compromised patient safety and potential regulatory violations, such as HIPAA in the U.S. context, which mandates the protection of patient health information and requires robust security measures. Ignoring the need for future scalability and focusing only on current needs is short-sighted and professionally irresponsible. It leads to a network that quickly becomes obsolete, requiring costly and disruptive redesigns. In a rapidly evolving healthcare technology landscape, this failure to anticipate future demands can hinder the adoption of new medical technologies and analytics, ultimately impacting the quality of care and the hospital's competitive standing. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a structured, iterative design process that begins with a comprehensive understanding of stakeholder needs and business objectives. This involves detailed requirements gathering, risk assessment, and the development of a phased implementation plan. Prioritizing critical functionalities and conducting pilot programs in sensitive environments are crucial for validating design choices and mitigating risks. Continuous engagement with stakeholders throughout the design and implementation lifecycle ensures that the solution remains aligned with evolving needs and regulatory landscapes. Adherence to industry best practices and relevant regulatory frameworks, e.g., HIPAA for healthcare in the U.S., is paramount, ensuring both technical efficacy and ethical compliance. Question 17. Governance review demonstrates that the current wireless network in a large hospital is experiencing performance issues that are impacting the reliability of critical medical devices used for patient monitoring. The design team is tasked with recommending improvements. Which of the following approaches best addresses the immediate need to ensure uninterrupted patient care while also considering future scalability and security? Option A. Expand Wi-Fi coverage to all areas of the hospital, ensuring a strong signal everywhere without specific traffic management. Option B. Adopt a best effort delivery model for all wireless traffic, focusing on general user connectivity. Option C. Deploy a flat quality of service, (QoS) policy that provides equal bandwidth and priority to all wireless traffic. Option D. Implement a tiered quality of service, (QoS) strategy that prioritizes traffic from critical medical devices and applications. The correct answer is D. Implement a tiered quality of service, (QoS) strategy that prioritizes traffic from critical medical devices and applications. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in enterprise wireless network design where a critical business function, patient care in a healthcare setting, is directly impacted by network performance. The challenge lies in balancing the immediate need for robust and reliable wireless connectivity for life-critical applications with the constraints of budget and existing infrastructure. The inherent complexity of a healthcare environment with its diverse user base, clinicians, administrators, patients, visitors, varied device types, medical equipment, tablets, smartphones, and stringent data privacy requirements, HIPAA in the U.S. context, further amplifies the difficulty. Ensuring uninterrupted service for critical medical devices, while also accommodating general user traffic and adhering to security protocols, requires meticulous planning and a deep understanding of both technical capabilities and stakeholder priorities. The pressure to deliver a high-quality, secure, and compliant wireless network within these constraints demands careful judgment and a structured approach to design. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach prioritizes the critical business requirements of patient care by implementing a tiered QoS strategy. This aligns with best professional practice because it directly addresses the most vital stakeholder needs. By classifying and prioritizing traffic from critical medical devices and applications, the network ensures that these essential services receive the necessary bandwidth and low latency, even during periods of high network utilization. This proactive measure minimizes the risk of service disruption to patient care, which is paramount in a healthcare setting. From a regulatory perspective, this approach supports compliance with healthcare regulations, such as HIPAA in the U.S., that mandate the availability and integrity of patient data and the systems that manage it. Ensuring the reliability of medical devices that transmit patient data is a direct consequence of effective QoS implementation. This demonstrates a commitment to patient safety and operational continuity, which are ethical imperatives in healthcare IT. Incorrect approaches analysis. Implementing a flat QoS policy that treats all traffic equally fails to acknowledge the differentiated criticality of various applications within a healthcare environment. This is a regulatory and ethical failure, because it significantly increases the risk of service degradation for life-critical medical devices, potentially impacting patient care. Such an approach could lead to non-compliance with regulations that require the availability of systems supporting patient care. Focusing solely on maximizing Wi-Fi coverage without considering traffic prioritization is also an inadequate approach. While broad coverage is important, it does not guarantee the performance required for critical applications. This can lead to intermittent connectivity or insufficient bandwidth for essential medical devices, posing a risk to patient safety and potentially violating regulatory requirements for reliable data transmission in healthcare. Adopting a best effort delivery model for all wireless traffic without any form of prioritization or traffic shaping is fundamentally incompatible with the demands of a healthcare environment. This approach is a direct ethical and regulatory failure, as it abdicates responsibility for ensuring the performance of critical systems. It creates an unacceptable level of risk for patient care and would likely lead to significant compliance issues with healthcare data protection and availability mandates. Professional reasoning. Professionals designing wireless networks for critical environments like healthcare must adopt a stakeholder-centric and risk-aware decision-making process. This begins with thoroughly understanding the business objectives and identifying critical applications and their performance requirements. A comprehensive risk assessment should then be conducted to understand the potential impact of network failures on these critical functions. Regulatory and compliance requirements must be integrated into the design from the outset. The design should then leverage appropriate technical solutions, such as CoS, to mitigate identified risks and meet performance objectives. Continuous monitoring and validation are essential to ensure the network continues to meet its design goals and regulatory obligations. Question 18. Operational review demonstrates that the enterprise wireless network handles sensitive customer payment information and is subject to U.S. federal regulations governing financial data security. The design team is evaluating various security frameworks, which approach best aligns with the regulatory requirements and professional best practices for protecting this type of data. Option A. Adopt a framework that focuses on strong encryption for user data, but does not require multi-factor authentication for administrative access to network infrastructure. Option B. Select a framework that employs outdated encryption standards and allows for guest access with minimal authentication to improve user experience. Option C. Deploy a framework that prioritizes ease of user onboarding and network access, utilizing basic encryption and relying on network segmentation for security. Option D. Implement a framework that utilizes strong, industry-standard encryption protocols and mandates multi-factor authentication for all administrative access to network devices. The correct answer is D. Implement a framework that utilizes strong, industry-standard encryption protocols and mandates multi-factor authentication for all administrative access to network devices. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in enterprise wireless design, balancing the need for robust security with the operational requirements of a dynamic user base and evolving threat landscape. The professional challenge lies in selecting a security framework that is not only technically sound, but also compliant with the specific regulatory environment governing the organization's operations. Without a clear understanding of these regulations, a design could inadvertently create vulnerabilities or lead to non-compliance, resulting in significant penalties and reputational damage. The decision-making process requires careful consideration of the implications of each security protocol beyond its technical merits, extending to its legal and ethical ramifications within the defined jurisdiction. Correct approach analysis. Adopting a security framework that aligns with the principles of data privacy and integrity, as mandated by relevant U.S. federal regulations such as HIPAA for healthcare data or PCI DSS for payment card information, represents best professional practice. This approach ensures that sensitive data transmitted over the wireless network is protected against unauthorized access and breaches. By prioritizing security protocols that offer strong encryption, robust authentication mechanisms, and granular access controls, the design directly addresses the core requirements of these regulations. This proactive stance not only mitigates risk, but also builds trust with users and stakeholders, demonstrating a commitment to responsible data stewardship. Correct approach is analysis. Implementing a security framework that relies solely on outdated or weak encryption standards, such as WEP or WPA, is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. These protocols are known to be vulnerable to various attacks, directly contravening the spirit and letter of regulations that demand adequate protection of sensitive information. Such a choice would expose the organization to data breaches, leading to potential fines, legal liabilities, and loss of customer confidence, all of which are direct consequences of failing to meet regulatory security mandates. Choosing a security framework that does not incorporate multi-factor authentication for administrative access, even if it offers strong encryption for user data, represents a critical oversight. Many U.S. regulations emphasize layered security and the principle of least privilege. The lack of multi-factor authentication for privileged accounts creates a single point of failure, making the network susceptible to unauthorized administrative control and data manipulation. This failure to implement robust access controls for critical infrastructure components is a direct violation of security best practices, and often implicitly or explicitly prohibited by regulatory frameworks focused on system integrity. Selecting a security framework that prioritizes ease of deployment and user convenience over comprehensive security controls, such as disabling robust authentication mechanisms or implementing overly broad network access, is also a regulatory and ethical failure. While user experience is important, it cannot come at the expense of fundamental security requirements. Regulations typically mandate that security measures be proportionate to the risks involved. Sacrificing security for convenience can lead to unauthorized access, data leakage, and noncompliance with data protection laws, such as those requiring confidentiality and integrity of information. Professional reasoning. Professionals designing enterprise wireless networks must employ a decision-making framework that begins with a thorough understanding of the applicable regulatory landscape within the specified jurisdiction, in this case, U.S. federal regulations. This involves identifying all relevant laws and industry standards that govern data security and privacy for the organization's sector. The next step is to assess the organization's specific data types, user base, and threat model. Security solutions should then be evaluated based on their ability to meet both technical security requirements and regulatory mandates. A risk-based approach is crucial, prioritizing controls that address the most significant threats and compliance obligations. Continuous monitoring and periodic re-evaluation of the security posture against evolving threats and regulatory changes are essential components of this framework. Question 19. Assessment of a proposed enterprise wireless network design for a healthcare facility in the United States reveals a need to ensure strict adherence to data privacy and transmission regulations. The design team has identified several potential Wi-Fi 6E access point models. Which of the following design considerations best demonstrates a proactive and compliant approach to meeting these regulatory obligations? Option A. Selecting access points that are certified by the FCC for operation in the United States and documenting the specific channels and power levels used to ensure compliance with Part 15 of the FCC rules for unlicensed spectrum. Option B. Implementing the highest available encryption standards on the network and deferring the detailed review of specific U.S. healthcare data privacy regulations until after the network has been deployed. Option C. Relying on the vendor's general statement that the access points are Wi-Fi 6E compliant, and assuming this automatically satisfies all U.S. healthcare data transmission regulations. Option D. Choosing access points based solely on their maximum theoretical throughput and coverage range, with the understanding that regulatory compliance will be addressed as a separate post-design project. The correct answer is A. Selecting access points that are certified by the FCC for operation in the United States and documenting the specific channels and power levels used to ensure compliance with Part 15 of the FCC rules for unlicensed spectrum. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in enterprise wireless network design, balancing performance requirements with the need to comply with evolving regulatory mandates. The professional challenge lies in interpreting and applying potentially ambiguous or conflicting guidelines to a specific technical implementation. A designer must not only understand the technical implications of different design choices, but also their legal and ethical ramifications within the specified jurisdiction. The pressure to deliver a high-performing network can sometimes lead to overlooking or downplaying regulatory considerations, which can have severe consequences. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach prioritizes a thorough understanding and explicit documentation of how the proposed wireless design adheres to the specified regulatory framework. This involves proactively identifying all relevant regulations, such as those pertaining to spectrum usage, data privacy, and device certification within the exam's jurisdiction, which is assumed to be U.S.-based for this example, given the exam's typical context. Best professional practice dictates that the design documentation clearly articulates the compliance strategy, including any specific configurations, hardware choices, or operational procedures implemented to meet these requirements. This demonstrates due diligence, mitigates legal risk, and ensures the network operates within legal boundaries, fostering trust with stakeholders and end users. Incorrect approach is analysis. One incorrect approach involves assuming that standard, out-of-the-box wireless configurations will automatically satisfy all regulatory requirements. This is a failure of due diligence. Regulatory frameworks are specific and often require explicit configuration or hardware choices to ensure compliance. Relying on assumptions can lead to unintentional violation, such as using unlicensed spectrum improperly or failing to implement necessary data security measures mandated by regulations like HIPAA or GDPR, if applicable to the exam's scope, though the prompt specifies U.S. Another incorrect approach is to defer regulatory compliance to a later stage, such as post-deployment or operational phases. This is professionally irresponsible. Regulatory compliance is a fundamental design consideration, not an afterthought. Delaying this assessment can result in costly redesigns, deployment delays, and potential legal penalties if non-compliant elements are discovered after the network is in use. It also indicates a lack of foresight and a failure to integrate compliance into the core design principles. A third incorrect approach is to prioritize vendor claims of compliance without independent verification against the specific regulatory framework. While vendors strive for compliance, their products must be implemented and configured correctly within the target environment to achieve it. Over-reliance on vendor marketing without understanding the underlying regulatory requirements and how the product specifically meets them is a significant professional oversight. This can lead to a false sense of security and actual noncompliance. Professional reasoning. Professionals should employ a structured decision-making framework that integrates regulatory compliance from the outset. This involves 1. Identifying all applicable regulations for the target jurisdiction and network use case. 2. Mapping these regulatory requirements to specific design elements e.g., spectrum usage, encryption standards, data handling. 3. Documenting the compliance strategy explicitly within the design. 4. Seeking expert consultation if regulatory interpretation is unclear. 5. Incorporating compliance checks into the testing and validation phases. This systematic approach ensures that technical design decisions are informed by and aligned with legal and ethical obligations. Question 20. Comparative studies suggest that the choice of wireless security protocol significantly impacts an organization's security posture and compliance adherence. An IT manager is tasked with designing a new wireless network for a financial services firm that handles sensitive client data and must comply with stringent data protection regulations. Firm has a mix of corporate-issued laptops and a BYOD, bring your own device policy for employee smartphones. The IT manager needs to select a protocol that offers the strongest security and meets regulatory mandates without unduly hindering user productivity or requiring a complete overhaul of existing network infrastructure. Which wireless security protocol should be prioritized for this enterprise deployment? Option A, Web. Option B, WPA3 Personal. Option C, WPA3 Enterprise. Option D, WPA2 Personal. Correct answer is C, WPA3 Enterprise. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in enterprise wireless network design, balancing the need for robust security and user experience with the constraints of limited budget and existing infrastructure. The IT manager is tasked with selecting a wireless security protocol that meets the organization's compliance requirements, while also ensuring seamless connectivity for a diverse range of devices. The professional challenge lies in navigating the trade-offs between different security standards, their implementation complexity, and their impact on network performance and user adoption. The need for careful judgment arises from the potential for security vulnerabilities, user dissatisfaction, and noncompliance if the wrong protocol is chosen. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves prioritizing WPA3 Enterprise due to its superior security features, including stronger encryption, GCMP 256, protection against dictionary attacks, and support for protected management frames, PMF. This aligns with best professional practices for enterprise wireless security, aiming to safeguard sensitive corporate data and comply with industry regulations that mandate robust data protection. WPA3 Enterprise offers a significant security upgrade over WPA2 Enterprise, addressing known vulnerabilities and providing a more resilient security posture. Its adoption demonstrates a commitment to proactive security measures and a forward-thinking approach to network design, ensuring the network can withstand evolving threats. Incorrect approaches analysis. Selecting WPA2 personal would be a significant regulatory and ethical failure. WPA2 personal relies on a pre-shared key, PSK, which is inherently less secure for an enterprise environment. Sharing a single PSK among all users increases the risk of unauthorized access if the key is compromised or shared inappropriately. This approach fails to meet the security requirements for protecting sensitive corporate data and would likely violate data privacy regulations that mandate strong authentication and access control mechanisms. Choosing WPA3 personal also presents a regulatory and ethical failure in an enterprise context. While WPA3 personal offers improvements over WPA2 personal, it still uses a PSK and is not designed for the robust authentication and authorization needs of a corporate network. It lacks the granular control and centralized management capabilities essential for enterprise security policies, making it unsuitable for protecting sensitive information and ensuring compliance with data protection mandates. Opting for WEP would be a severe and immediate regulatory and ethical failure. WEP is an outdated and demonstrably insecure protocol with well-known vulnerabilities that can be easily exploited. Its use would expose the organization to significant security risks, including data breaches and unauthorized access, and would unequivocally violate any data protection or privacy regulations. This choice would represent gross negligence in network security design. Professional reasoning. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a thorough understanding of the organization's security requirements, compliance obligations, and the types of devices and users that will access the network. This involves assessing the threat landscape and identifying potential vulnerabilities. The next step is to evaluate available wireless security protocols against these requirements, considering their security strengths, implementation complexity, compatibility with existing infrastructure and client devices, and impact on network performance. A risk assessment should be conducted for each viable option, quantifying the potential impact of security breaches. The decision should be documented, justifying the chosen protocol based on its ability to meet security and compliance mandates while balancing operational needs and budget constraints. Regular review and updates to the security posture are also critical components of professional network design.